Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ana Fernandez. I am an attorney in Miami, Florida, and I'm going to talk to you briefly about college tuition and child support. Now, is college tuition typically considered child support? And in brief, the answer is no. So in the state of Florida, child support is statutory. Something very foundational. If you choose to bring a child into this world, you are going to be responsible for them. So of course, if you terminate your parental rights, if you give your child up for an adoption, that's all a different story. But for purposes of this video and for this hypothetical, let's assume mom and dad were married, mom and dad divorced, and now there's a question on whether the child, let's say, is about to turn 18. Technically and legally, child support should end there. Child support in the state of Florida is determined by child support calculations, and these guidelines are found in the statute. So this is all statutory. And there's three things that are typically factored into, few things that are factored into, but three payments that are factored into when calculating child support. And that's how much does the health insurance cost, how much do out-of-pocket expenses for whatever's not covered under the health insurance that is being spent on the child, not on the parents, on the child alone. And the third one is a childcare, like a daycare. So it's not school, it's daycare. Do you have to hire an outside person to watch the child when, let's say, they're 3 or 4 years old? Now, of course, you can enroll them in school, but that's something that you have to do. The kids have to be in school. And that's not factored into whether you go to a private school or public school. That doesn't matter. For purposes of child support calculation, school is not typically included. Now, especially when the kid already turned to 18 years old, at that point, child support is not going to be something that's legally, that a parent would be legally obligated to do. However, there are exceptions. And what is that? Contracts. So whenever parents, if they were married when they divorced, or let's say they were not married, but they established a parenting plan, and of course we have videos for all of that too, and I'll include that in the links below. So let's say in either case, they either separate and there's a paternity action where there's a parenting plan, or they're divorcing and there's a parenting plan by virtue of a marital settlement agreement. Let's say, for example, for purposes of this discussion, that in that agreement, both parties agree to pay college tuition, and we'll leave it like that. Let's say when they get divorced, the kid was 3, so they didn't really consider certain logistics of what should be included in the agreement, because at the end of the day, if you don't have an obligation to do something, the way that you kind of can go around it is by making it in a contract, making someone or entering into a meeting of the minds where both parties agree. You can't make someone. That's a discussion for another video, but let's say both parties agree. If you are contractually bound to something, that's a contract. So 4th DCA, that's in the state of Florida, it's in Broward. In 2023, in January, they made a decision. This same issue came before the court. Child was small, very small. They were actually, it was more than one child. They were toddlers when they entered into the marital separation agreement, the marital settlement agreement with the parenting plan. And in the agreement, it said that both parties were going to split the college tuition. But so the court found that, well, dad, you were supposed to pay half, mom paid it all, you're supposed to reimburse her. The dad appealed, and this went before the 4th DCA, which is you have the trial court, and then you have the court of appeals. So let's say they go before the court of appeals, and appeals, they reviewed it, and of course, because you don't have a legal obligation to pay child support after they turn 18, the court then goes to the agreement and interprets that as a contract. And in this agreement, there was no specification of if there was going to be a cap on how much the tuition would cost, what would happen if one of the parties couldn't afford it, what exactly does college tuition mean? Does it mean room and board? Does it mean just your classes? Does it include books? It wasn't specific enough to be considered in agreement. So the fourth DCA overturned that decision. But the way that we interpret this is that no, by law you're not legally required to pay for a child after they pass 18. You don't have to do child support. It can't necessarily be considered child support. However, if you do have an agreement that, hey, both parents are going to be responsible for college that is going to be 4 years, it's not going to include masters, it's going to include books, it's going to include room and board, it's going to include out-of-state college. You make it as specific as you possibly can, that a court would have to interpret it as a contract, a meeting of the minds. There's also a provision that says, what if one of the parties can't pay their portion? What's going to happen then? That sort of thing. You make it as specific as possible, then there's a high chance that a court will consider it contractual, and it's possible that they may be able to enforce another party to pay half of whatever they had agreed to in the contract or in the agreement. So, in short, are you responsible to pay for your kids' college? And the answer is no. But there are exceptions. And again, if you put it in an agreement, you put it in a contract, and you make it as specific as possible, there's a chance, at least here in Florida, that the courts may consider or may obligate one of the parties to reimburse. Because at the end of the day, it's because mom incurred all of the fees of the college and she expected the dad to pay half. And I think it was over $100,000 in this case. And she was expecting him to reimburse half of it based on the promise that he made, based on the contract. However, because it wasn't specific enough, it was overturned. So if you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to have addressed in a general way, especially if it's here in Florida, please send your questions. Let us know so that we can create content like this to help better serve you and the community. Thank you.